There is a fire inside your body right now. You can't feel it. There's no heat, no smoke, no obvious sign. It runs quietly, below the surface, day after day. And if nobody has told you it's there, that's because most standard blood tests aren't designed to find it. This fire has a name. It's called chronic low-grade inflammation. And the research published in journals of physiology, immunology, and cardiology is now clear. It is one of the primary drivers behind heart disease, type 2 diabetes, cognitive decline, joint breakdown, and accelerated aging. Not a contributing factor, a primary driver. Here's the part that should matter to you personally. Chronic inflammation isn't something that strikes out of nowhere. In the majority of cases, it is built slowly, consistently, by ordinary daily habits. The same habits that most people never connect to their stiff joints, their sluggish mornings, their low-grade aches, and their feeling of being older than their age says they should be. And in the next few minutes, I'm going to show you exactly which habits are building it, and the specific science-backed steps that measurably reduce it without a single prescription. And at the 7-minute mark, I'm going to tell you about the most common anti-inflammatory food mistake people make. The one that appears healthy on every wellness blog in existence, but that the evidence suggests may actually keep your inflammation elevated. Stay with me, because the fire is real, and so is the way to put it out. I'm Dr. Michael Hartwell, and on this channel I give you honest, science-based health information that should be in every clinic room, but too often isn't. Let's start with what inflammation actually is. Not the word, but the mechanism, because understanding it changes how you think about almost everything in your health. When your body detects a threat, an injury, a bacteria, a virus, your immune system sends out a rapid response team. It releases proteins called cytokines, specifically ones called IL-6, IL-1 beta, and TNF-alpha. Think of cytokines as the alarm signals. They call immune cells to the site, trigger swelling and heat, and begin the repair process. This is acute inflammation. It is essential. It is how a cut heals, how an infection clears, how your body repairs damage. Acute inflammation is supposed to last days. It fires, does its job, and quiets down. But something else happens when the triggers never stop. When poor diet, disrupted sleep, chronic stress, and physical inactivity persist day after day, those alarm signals never fully switch off. The immune system stays on a low, constant alert. The cytokines keep circulating at lower levels, not enough to feel like illness, but enough to damage tissues slowly over time. Your liver responds by producing a protein called C-reactive protein, CRP. This is the measurable fingerprint of chronic inflammation in your blood. And when CRP stays elevated, the research is unambiguous. The risk of cardiovascular disease, metabolic disease, and accelerated cellular aging rises with it. Now here's where it gets really interesting. And this is the part that most people are never shown clearly. You do not need a drug to lower CRP. You need to remove what is producing it. And the single most studied, most powerful lever for doing that is not in a pharmacy. It's in what you eat. A meta-analysis of randomized controlled trials published in a peer-reviewed nutrition journal in 2025 examined the Mediterranean dietary pattern and its effect on systemic inflammation markers. The result? Significant measurable reductions in hsCRP, IL-6, and IL-17 across the intervention groups compared to standard diet controls. Not modest trends. Statistically significant reductions in the very biomarkers that predict disease progression. What makes Mediterranean pattern eating anti-inflammatory isn't a single ingredient. It's the combination. Abundant oily fish, salmon, sardines, mackerel, delivering omega-3 fatty acids that directly suppress the inflammatory cytokine cascade. Olive oil, rich in oleocanthal, a compound that works through a mechanism similar to anti-inflammatory medications. Vegetables and legumes feeding a diverse gut microbiome, which regulates the immune system's baseline. And critically, the near elimination of ultra-processed foods, refined sugars, and industrial seed oils, which are among the most potent dietary drivers of cytokine production identified in the literature. The first prescription is simple. Eat more of the things that quiet the immune system and fewer of the things that set it off. But diet is only the first lever, and alone, it won't be enough. because the second most powerful driver of chronic inflammation is one that almost no one accounts for. It's sleep. A rigorous meta-analysis published in 2026 in the Journal of Sleep Research examined 35 studies involving 887 healthy adults, specifically measuring what happens to CRP and IL-6 when sleep is chronically restricted. The finding was striking. Restricting sleep to approximately 4.5 hours per night for 3 or more consecutive nights produced a significant increase in both IL-6 and CRP in the bloodstream. Not after months, after days. Here's the mechanism that matters. During deep sleep, your body runs its primary anti-inflammatory maintenance cycle. Cortisol, your stress hormone, drops to its lowest point, and the immune system undergoes a natural recalibration. Regulatory processes that suppress cytokine overproduction are active during those deep sleep hours. When sleep is short or fragmented, that recalibration is cut off. The cytokine production continues, CRP rises, and the slow fire gets more oxygen. I told you at the start I would reveal the most common anti-inflammatory food mistake. Here it is. Taking high-dose antioxidant supplements, particularly isolated vitamin C, E, or beta-carotene in pill or powder form, as a substitute for dietary change. This is the wellness industry's most persistent error, and the evidence behind it is now sobering. Multiple large randomized trials, including the SELECT trial and the ATBC study, found that isolated antioxidant supplements not only failed to reduce inflammatory disease risk, some doses were associated with harm. The biology explains why. Antioxidants work synergistically in the complex food matrix of a whole plant. Extracted, isolated, and delivered at many times their natural concentration, that synergy is broken. Meanwhile, the person taking the supplement feels they have done something. The underlying habits don't change, the inflammation doesn't fall, and they never understand why they still feel the way they do. The evidence is unambiguous. Food reduces inflammation. Isolated pills mostly don't. Now the third piece, and this is the one that connects the biology to something deeply human. Chronic psychological stress is not just a mental experience. It is a direct, measurable physiological driver of inflammation. When you are under sustained stress, your adrenal glands continuously release cortisol. In the short term, cortisol is actually anti-inflammatory. It suppresses the immune response to keep you focused. But under chronic stress, the tissues become resistant to cortisol's signal. The brakes stop working. And without cortisol suppression, inflammatory cytokine production accelerates. A 2025 review in the journal Physiology identified smoking, ultra-processed diet, excessive alcohol, stress, sleep disorders, and sedentary behavior as the primary lifestyle activators of chronic inflammatory pathways, specifically naming NF-κB activation, the molecular switch that turns on cytokine production. Stress sits directly on that list, not as a soft contributor, as a hard biological trigger. And here is the bridge that connects ancient wisdom with modern science. Across contemplative traditions, and studied carefully in the context of Islamic prayer practice, researchers have observed that structured, repeated daily pauses, combining stillness, rhythmic breathing, and deliberate withdrawal from the demands of the day, produce measurable reductions in cortisol and in inflammatory biomarker levels. The 5 daily prayers of Islam, built around stillness, breath, and a conscious break from worldly pressure, represent a form of stress interruption practice that modern stress physiology now understands as genuinely protective at the cellular level. Ancient practice, modern confirmation. So let's put the whole picture together. Chronic inflammation is not random. It is built by specific inputs. Ultra-processed food, refined sugar, and industrial oils activate cytokine production directly. Short, fragmented sleep cuts off the body's nightly anti-inflammatory recalibration. Chronic stress overrides the hormonal brakes on the immune system. And isolated supplements give the feeling of action while the root causes remain. Remove the inputs, change what the immune system is responding to, and the fire quiets, measurably, reliably, often within weeks. Here is your 3-step protocol. You can start today. First, the anti-inflammatory plate. Build each meal around 3 principles: a source of omega-3 rich protein, oily fish at least 3 times a week, colorful vegetables across as many varieties as you can manage, and olive oil as your primary cooking fat. Remove as much as you practically can the ultra-processed foods and sugary drinks that provide the raw material for cytokine production. You do not need a perfect diet. You need a consistent direction. Second, the sleep recalibration. Protect 7 to 9 hours. Consistency of timing matters as much as duration. Your immune system calibrates to a regular rhythm. A disrupted sleep schedule, even at sufficient hours, blunts the anti-inflammatory effect. Treat your sleep window as a non-negotiable medical appointment with your own biology. Third, the daily cortisol interrupt. Once a day for 10 minutes minimum, deliberately withdraw from stimulus. Slow your breathing. Let your nervous system signal safety. This is not a luxury. This is the practice that keeps cortisol's brakes functional, the practice that multiple research lines now link to lower systemic inflammatory markers over time. Call it whatever fits your life. Just do it consistently. Give this 8 weeks. Because that is the window in which changes in inflammatory biomarkers become measurable. When a new direction in eating, sleeping, and stress management begins to show up in the biology. You are not waiting years. You are waiting weeks. The fire inside you right now did not start overnight. It was built slowly by small daily choices over months and years. And it can be reduced the same way, slowly, consistently, by replacing what fuels it with what calms it. Your body wants to be well. It is always moving toward repair. What it needs from you is fewer reasons to stay on alert. If this gave you a clearer picture of what inflammation actually is and what drives it, share it with someone in your life whose health has been declining in ways that nobody has been able to fully explain. Sometimes the missing piece isn't a new medication. It's the right question, asked about the right cause. Take care of yourself. I'll see you in the next one. One important note. This video is for educational purposes only and is not medical advice. Chronic inflammation can be a feature of serious underlying conditions that need proper diagnosis and treatment. Please do not stop any prescribed medication or treatment on the basis of lifestyle changes alone. If you have ongoing symptoms or are at risk of cardiovascular or metabolic disease, speak to a qualified healthcare professional who can assess your full picture.